Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the dev server and it's time to have a look at a new Chinese vehicle that is coming in for the ground forces. This is the ZTZ88B. Now the ZTZ88B is very similar to another vehicle that was recently added to the game, the ZTZ88A, which you can see here. They're both at 8.7 and will be part of the 8.7 lineup, which is already super strong. AFT09, which is probably the best ATGM carrier in the game, PTZ89, which is a fun tank destroyer, the TTS, which is fantastic, and also the ZTZ89D1, not even including the Huama, which is also fantastic. So these two just add more medium tanks to this lineup and just make it a lot better. So what's the difference between the ZTZ88B and the ZTZ88A, and why is the B before the A? Well, it's pretty simple. Imagine you are dating somebody and they say that you are inadequate in certain areas, and then you find them with long dick style in the corner of the room. That's basically the A compared to the B. So if you have a look at the shaft, when it comes to the cannon, the B is slightly shorter than it is on the A. So this changes the properties of the rounds which are fired out of the gun. So for example, you see that this gun is the 105mm 88B 105T, whereas on the ZTZ88A, it's the 105mm ZPL94. And if you have a look at the rounds, so let's just say the APDS or the APFSDS, you can see 337, 284, 195 on the B, and then for the 88A, it's 351, 296, 203. So because of that slightly longer barrel, it is slightly better. There is another difference though, and I don't know whether this is going to be the case or not, because the dev server is slightly different from what they showed on the test server, and that is the HEVT round, the DTB1, which is only available in the tech tree for the ZTZ88A and not the B. Everything else is exactly the same on the vehicles, but just that. So the HEVT round and also the length of the gun. So the B will still be a pretty good vehicle. This one has treated me pretty well, or at least the A has, I should say, before this one comes around. It has some interesting armor because it has this kind of extra plate on its upper glacis, along with the plate underneath of 100mm, but they're incredibly well angled, meaning that going through it can be a bit of a problem. The lower glacis is a bit of a weak spot, especially at 8.7, and also the turret itself being, pretty decent, but not the best with its variable thickness armor, and the breach is still a bit of a problem because it is slightly lower armor than the rest. The vehicle has access to a 4-man crew, meaning that it does have a manual loader for the 105, and also has a few issues like the commander doesn't get gunner controls, and also once again the extended reload from a machine like this. You can see with the reload that it starts off at 9.23 as a base and then can get up to an ace cruise 7.1 seconds. There's a lot of vehicles that can outdo this at this BR, even in the Chinese tech tree. Looking at the internals, you have the first stage ammo stowage, which is in the fuel tanks here, which will mean that you'll be a little bit more better at surviving, and also it has this composite armor in the upper glacis, even improving it. So if you want to shoot this thing, the place you shoot it is the turret, not necessarily the upper glacis, but the low glacis is also quite a nice little spot to shoot. The vehicles also have slightly different weights because of the guns, and also for some reason something else, because technically the 8A should be heavier than this one. You can see that they have slightly different guns on them. So the B has the Type 86 7.62 coaxial and also the Type 54 12.7, whereas the A has the SGMT coaxial. So that is another slight difference between them. But this one is somehow 2 to 2.5 tons heavier than the other one, so it's not going to be as fast around the place. Does have the 730 horsepower engine though, and also has access to a transmission, which could be better, if we're honest. If we have a look at a lot of other vehicles at 8.7, this is definitely not one of the more mobile ones. The gun is two-plate stabilized, which is super nice, and also the targeting speed is not great, but it's not the worst I've seen, especially from Chinese vehicles, which can struggle from that. But it does have the low silhouette. It does have kind of the more setup of the T55, which will obviously help it out when dealing with targets. It's not always best to just be absolutely massive and, you know, take up a lot of space. Looking at the armor, you have, of course, the spaced armor on the sides and the 60mm in here. Then the rest of the turret is variably thick, even the back of it. So if you're looking to shoot this thing and you don't have APF SDS, you want to try and shoot it from the areas where it's weakest with APF SDS. You should be able to shoot it through here, then you'll go through the engine and then also hit all of the crew in the inside, so it won't be too much of a problem. The rounds it has access to is a stock heat shell, which isn't the worst, but once again you're getting to the BR where composite becomes a thing, so it's not always nice to have a stock heat shell. Then you get a HESH shell, which is useless, and then you have the APF SDS shell, which is what everybody will use. And the Type 83 APF SDS, it's okay, you know, there's DM33 at this BR nowadays, so this shell is, you know, not great compared to it. You know, 337-284-195, and then if you have a look at, you know, DM33, which is sat around the place, on stuff like the Leopard 185, for example, you know, it's 408-344-236, just to kind of show you the difference between these types of rounds. Is it a serviceable round? Yeah, of course. Is it the best? No. Has access to no thermals, so just standard night vision. Does have some smoke grenades though, which is nice, artillery and also ESS, and one of the main things is the laser rangefinder, which is super useful on the machine. You can see the smoke grenades here in this setup. So what we have here is just another vehicle which adds to that 8.7 lineup and gives you pretty much another platform to be able to play if you enjoy the 8.7 lineup. China right now and over the last few years has got a lot of expansion of its higher echelons of the game, and it's been fantastic to see, mainly because of the fact that I knew China had so many, you know, MBTs and so many general vehicles that they could play, and now to see a lot of them in the game is really nice. Are they done yet? No. There's still an absolute metric ton of them, which can still be added. You know, the good old 80s and other vehicles like it, and I'm sure we'll see them in the future, kind of going forward in the tech tree. Now, a lot of them are of similar style, a lot of them do have very similar play styles in War Thunder, but do differ slightly when it comes to either mobility, armor, or general rounds that they get access to. And this APF SDS is good enough to pretty much face anything you're going to come up against, maybe apart from the high tier 9.7s, but against a lot of the 8.790 stuff, which is kind of the meta right now, it's able to just punch through them pretty aggressively. The major issue with these types of vehicles is not the armor, or it's not the armament, it's the general mobility, and also the fact that the turret traverse and general targeting speed is a lot lower than what you'll be used to in a lot of other vehicles. The round and the general firepower is never the problem, and also the armor is not either. It's that other part of the triangle which gets more and more useful as we go forward. The good old mobility part, which is so crucial nowadays in War Thunder, especially the higher echelons of the game. It is kind of nuts. Will this vehicle be good? Yeah, it will be satisfactory. Are there better vehicles at this BR for China? I would actually say yes. I'm not sure if this vehicle actually gets in my proper lineup for 8.7. I think I'd rather go the WMA or the WMA, the good old AFT09, and even the M60A3 TTS because of that thermal and stabilizer and survivability combo. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Kupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R, and Lafouche for supporting the channel.